Far From Home wouldn't be the same movie without its incredible special effects. Everything from touching up Spidey's suits to creating the elementals required multiple companies, hundreds of people, and hours of work. So we'll spend this video breaking down their additions to the film and just how incomplete it would look without them.
In every interview, he's like, when I wear the bubble hat, and I'm like, no you didn't.
Far From Home's most memorable scene has got to be the intense illusion battle, the big midway fight sequence of the film. Framestore, the company in charge of this sequence, was given an unusual amount of freedom to create the scene. They weren't given a set script to follow. Instead, they were given the creative freedom to come up with the concepts for the illusions at the same time they were animating and adding effects to the shots. This gave them the unique opportunity to provide direction for the on-set production team, for example with this shot where MJ is attacked by Mysterio. Framestore blocked out the animation ahead of time with a CG MJ, complete with precise lighting from the moon and lights of the Eiffel Tower. This rendered footage was passed along to the set production, who were able to recreate the exact lighting Framestore needed for the shot. This allowed them to slip Zendaya's performance into the final product looking absolutely perfect. By the way, the construction site where the battle takes place? 100% CG. Framestore created the entire building model, adding Tom Holland's mocap footage on top. They used a mocap suit instead of filming Tom in costume to save time on set. All of those reality-bending illusions would have meant way too many costume changes for just one sequence. That nightmare-inducing zombie Iron Man utilized mocap as well. Framestore went through several designs for the undead hero, finding the right balance to be horrifying without showing anything too gruesome. The final product finds a good middle ground, resembling a mummy beneath the broken bits of machinery. Marvel moviegoers are no stranger to the incredible holograms of this cinematic universe, which means the VFX teams have to keep their designs consistent with the Marvel style while putting in a few new twists to keep the visuals from getting stale for longtime fans. For this scene where Mysterio is introduced as Quentin Beck and explains the elemental attacks, filming was done using a special lightbox table. Rising Sun Pictures had to not only design and place the holograms in the scene, but adjust the lighting and colors depending on which holograms were showing to make them look like they were really in the room with the actors. The work had to be done in layers, sometimes completely removing the lighting from on set. The lighting in the raw footage lacks the subtle colors reflecting from the holograms that don't just make the scene look pretty, but create an atmosphere to complement the actors' performances. Sometimes an actor's job boils down to fighting invisible monsters on set. The scene with the water elemental battle was filmed on set with recreations of buildings from Venice on top of a huge pool of water and blue screens as backdrops. While the scene utilized a ton of CG, most of the stunts were accomplished by Tom and his stunt doubles, Luke Scott and Greg Townley.
I never have a stunt double, it's always me.
VFX not only hid the wires required to help Tom jump from pole to pole and vault onto the Rialto Bridge, but filled in the backgrounds of Venice and, of course, brought the water elemental to life. There were no rigs or dummies used for the monster, which means the actors had to rely on their imaginations to really sell their performances. All of that water they were drenched with was real though, and very cold. Similar techniques were used for filming the scenes in London. While portions of the scenes set on Tower Bridge were filmed on location, they also filmed using set pieces such as the tour bus in front of green screens. The shots littered with rubble and broken down cars were set pieces in front of green screens too. For wide shots, Imageworks built a complete 3D model of Tower Bridge. This model was also used for filming all the destruction that took place during the climactic final battle. During all this action, we see tons of drones in various states of despair. Imageworks was able to create all of these broken bots by altering their original models. The drones were constructed out of various individual pieces, all coming together to form a single machine. Like the water elemental, the drones didn't use any objects on set as stand-ins to help the actors visualize the scene. Here's what Peter's final confrontation with Beck really looked like on set. Believe it or not, this scene, set in a vibrant field of tulips, was filmed in an empty grass lot in the UK. The jet and all the flowers were CG. Image Engine had to simulate an entire field of tulips with natural wind as well as the jet landing. Over 2 million tulips were simulated in this scene. There were 8 colors and 8 different tulips created for each color. In order to render all of them efficiently, they used a method called pre-caching, where software will download data ahead of time in anticipation of its use. That way, the computers weren't forced to simulate 2 million flowers at the same time. Stripped of CGI, this scene is just Tom Holland and Jon Favreau standing in some grass. Did you know ImageWorks did VFX for all the previous Spider-Man movies? That's right, they provided effects for the original trilogy and The Amazing Spider-Man. Producers were actually reluctant to go to them again for the MCU installments since they wanted to give the third iteration of the hero a fresh new look. That was until they saw this test footage ImageWorks whipped up to prove that they were up to the task. That's not Tom Holland in costume, that's completely CG. The 3D model looked and moved so convincingly that even Tom Holland himself was fooled. To innovate on their previous work, they focused on making MCU's Spider-Man the most realistic one yet. They did this by studying imperfections in Tom's movements from unused takes and incorporating them into the animated Spider-Man. Moments of hesitation or getting caught off balance helped make the CG Spidey feel far more grounded in reality than any of the previous films. While some of Spidey's suits are completely computer-generated and require a mocap suit, even the costumes on set require digital tweaking here and there. It can be as simple as removing wrinkles to keep the suit looking smooth, or adding wear and tear from the intense action sequences. Following in Tony Stark's footsteps, Peter enters the workshop in the back of the jet to build his own suit for the first time since he ran around Queens in sweats. While the shots of Peter entering are all CG, there was also a physical set for the workshop. After filming Tom on set, the holograms were added in post with VFX. Image Engine had to create an exact replica of the set in order to accurately layer the holograms and moving machinery over the real footage, bringing the workshop to life in the final product. This scene isn't just an important character moment for Peter, but a chance for the audience to see what goes into building a Stark Tech Spidey suit. Image Engine had to decide what the individual elements of the suit would look like, ultimately breaking it down into 3 layers for the construction process. There's a white wet fiber layer, a layer of black and red fabric detailing, and a layer for hard surfaces such as the eyepieces and chest patches. The company in charge of VFX for the final battle in London, ImageWorks, kept these details consistent when adding battle damage to the suit. If we look at his suit closely during his emotional reunion with MJ, we can see patches of white material where the suit sustained damage.
There's a little thing that I pull out, and then I put a squeezy tube down into my mouth, and then I can drink from a bottle.
Just how uncomfortable can wearing a Spider-Man suit be? Every Spider-Man film has boasted an extremely vibrant collection of characters equipped with some state-of-the-art costumes and makeup. From those tight Spidey suits to those gruesome villainous prosthetics, the stars of the Spider-Man movies had to get quite uncomfortable when portraying their on-screen personas.
I was just swinging about in this super creepy way and trying to talk to Peter.
Who wouldn't want to suit up as Spider-Man? It was our childhood dream to put on the iconic red and blue suit, and that was no different for star Tom Holland.
I feel like my whole life had been leading up to me trying on this suit.
Despite the excitement, wearing the suit on set did come with some setbacks. In fact, Holland believes that he has the hardest suit to wear out of anyone in the Marvel Universe. Whenever Holland has the classic suit on, he's covered head to toe in Lycra with no skin showing.
I can't even use my phone. Yeah. And I'm 23, I use my phone a lot.
In fact, Holland isn't even able to scratch an itch on his face in the costume. It's just one of the costs of being Spider-Man.
It looks amazing, it feels terrible.
The costume designers behind the Mysterio suit wanted to make sure that it was as practical as possible. Since the bulky costume wasn't particularly the most comfortable fit, the producers assumed that Gyllenhaal wouldn't want to be wearing the villain's threads in too many scenes.
It's like wearing a ball gown. They sort of grab your back, you're all of a sudden choked by this.
Right.
Though Gyllenhaal was more than willing, and even a little excited, to bear through the discomfort and wear the Mysterio costume whenever he would see fit. So not only is this costume practical, but he wears it everywhere. It makes sense to wear it, so we think this looks amazing.
It took a little bit of time to put on, but once it was on, it made me feel pretty strong.
It wasn't just Alfred Molina who took on the persona of Doc Ock. Director Sam Raimi wanted the villain's trademark claws to actually be practical effects, which led to puppeteers acting around Molina to make his robotic tentacles look more alive. Molina needed to do rehearsals in costumes so he could get accustomed to moving around in the complicated suit.
People understand how much the actors are doing, because you think, oh, it's all magical CGI stuff.
Topher Grace had to undergo a grueling makeup process to become the iconic Spider-Man villain Venom for the third film in the original trilogy. I had 4 hours of prosthetic makeup every morning when I was Venom, and just getting on the suit takes about 45 minutes before that, so I had to get there at 3 or something. Grace also had to go through an extensive workout routine to gain around 20 pounds for the role. In order for Dane DeHaan to become the grotesque and slimy Green Goblin, the makeup took over 3 hours. Initial designs for the gross-looking villain had DeHaan taking on an even greener look as the iconic Spider-Man villain, but the makeup department decided to go for a look that felt more slightly human than full-on goblin.
That's how I started out, playing pretend and dressing up as superheroes.
Dane DeHaan's goblin suit weighed 50 pounds and took an hour to put on. The set where DeHaan was required to be in his goblin getup was over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. And because of the extreme conditions, DeHaan lost 7 pounds in just 2 days. Now that's impressive. Jamie Foxx had the distinct advantage of having 2 distinctive styles as Max Dillon, aka Electro, in The Amazing Spider-Man 2, but it was his villain's nerdy alter ego that was internally painful for typically sleek and smooth Fox. Fox dubbed his hair on set as the first black comb-over, and he also sported a gap in his teeth. When I was Max on the streets, girls are like, look at Jamie Foxx, at that hair, oh my god, something is off with him. At the same time, Fox was at least somewhat relieved that he wouldn't be as bombarded with attention, since he figured there'd be plenty of people who wouldn't recognize him. Honestly though, most people would be able to recognize Jamie Foxx, no matter the makeup.
Hey y'all, tell everybody, Electro's in town.
The makeup department behind Jamie Foxx's Electro look had to get very experimental in order to prevent inhibiting Fox's performance as the blue-skinned villain. Very thin pieces of silicone were applied all over Fox's body in order for the look to be much more believable. On top of the silicone, Fox had to wear glowing blue contact lenses.
It was a great choice to be in this film, and I'm happy and fortunate that they chose me.
While Rhys Ifan's full lizard form was mostly CGI, there still was plenty of makeup work to be done for the transitioning stages of the villain. Ifans would spend up to 7 to 8 hours in the makeup chair to complete his green, scaly look. After 7 hours in a chair with not enough cigarettes, I was kind of in the right mental state to play a man who was about to transform into a 9-foot lizard with a dangerous tail. The prosthetics caused a lot of chafing on Ifan's body, which led him to walking around like a cowboy for several days after filming. After all, there has to be some side effects from becoming the lizard. Marvel was extremely strict about what Holland was supposed to wear underneath his costume. During Holland's first day on set, he was given thongs by the crew as the only thing he could wear under the Spider-Man costume. I had serious misgivings. Would my ever be the same again? But I had to get used to it.
So essentially, I have to wear, pajamas.
Michael Keaton's Vulture suit stands out in how it combines the classic Marvel style with something a bit more grounded. I can't tell you, there are hundreds maybe of little screws, literally, that special wrenches made to put the boots in a certain way. A costume this intricate took quite some time to fully equip on Keaton.
I don't know what my favorite costume was, because it's like, 7:30? I'm barely awake. I barely know where I am.
Andrew Garfield wasn't necessarily thrilled the first time he put on his Spider-Man suit. The suit he wore was made of a material that was designed to make you irritated. On top of that, Garfield's suit was skin tight, which led to more of his body being visible to the public than we would have preferred. One of the first nights, we were out on location in downtown LA. We were in a parking structure. I knew there were paparazzi taking terrible, unflattering shots of my, everything. It was an acting exercise.
It was just a lot to hold. I struggled to hold it all. I kind of rejected it a lot.
Rules were so strict that Holland claimed that even simply drinking water in the Spidey suit was dangerous. This led to Holland and the costume designers having to brainstorm ways to adapt, as obviously, Holland would need some fluids while filming in the heat.
I can kind of get it. I've had a Kit Kat in the suit now.
The left eye on the Spidey costume would have a squeezy tube attached that Holland would have to pull out and put into his mouth so he could get a drink of water. How refreshing.
I loved in Spider-Man, particularly playing the double role.
Willem Dafoe is known for his very distinguishable jawline, so when playing Norman Osborn in the first Sam Raimi Spider-Man movie, he needed to look more like how the billionaire character looked in the comics. Dafoe was given dental prosthetics to make his teeth look straighter as the main villain, though the prosthetics were removed whenever his character would look at himself in the mirror.
And they were really fun to do.
While Willem Dafoe surprisingly did not need much prosthetic work done, the acclaimed thespian still had some discomfort about the Green Goblin's technologically advanced costume. Dafoe called his experience in costume severe, though he still had a great time on set. Whenever Tom Holland put on that Spider-Man suit, he knew there was no going back for him, in many ways, like having to wait to go to the bathroom.
An accident is not an option. That suit is so expensive. They'll be so upset with me.
In fact, Holland would have to plan going to take a bathroom break 45 minutes in advance. Hopefully there were no accidents while filming. Tobey Maguire wore the iconic red and blue Spider-Man suit over the course of 3 films. Just because he had a longer tenure as the character than somebody like Andrew Garfield, that didn't make the suit any more comfortable. In fact, the black symbiote suit that Maguire wore in the 3rd film proved to be the most uncomfortable suit of them all. It can ride up in the crotch a little bit. It's not really the outerwear of the suit, it's the inner bit that rides up. Well, at least it wasn't Flash Thompson giving the wedgies this time. Tobey Maguire holds the title of being the first actor to portray Spider-Man on the big screen, and with that, the costume designers were still trying to work through crafting the perfect Spider-Man costume. In order to get the costume right, the designers had to do a full-body cast of Maguire, which wasn't the most fun experience for the actor. I had to stand there for a couple of hours, and then the stuff sticking to the hair on my body, and they ripped it off, and it was extremely painful. Maguire even initially had a hard time acting with the Spider-Man mask on, though he was able to get used to it quite quickly. While Andrew Garfield's comics-accurate Spider-Man suit may have been a fan favorite in The Amazing Spider-Man 2, it was far from comfortable for Garfield to wear.
It was a very specific experience, and I imagine it'll be different every time.
Garfield blamed his British reverse on the reason why he was uncomfortable in the costume. Spandex does not suit the British. You are pretty much naked, so you have to trust what you have is enough. Paul Giamatti's Rhino suit required plenty of CGI, but that didn't prevent his on-set appearance from being an uncomfortable one. In fact, Giamatti's costume while filming required him to be attached to a large metal-like structure, some of which he'd wear with backpack straps.
Sometimes unscripted moments breathe more life into a scene.
The adults are talking.
And other times, they
I'm so sorry.
fall short. Luckily in the MCU, the improvisation gene is impeccably strong amongst its actors. So in this video, we're taking you through all of Spider-Man's unscripted moments that completely took the films to another level. Action. We all know Tony Stark isn't one to get himself caught up in emotional moments, and in Spider-Man Homecoming, Peter Parker learns that in a pretty awkward way. After Tony Stark has a talk with Peter in his car, he reaches over to open the car door, but Peter thinks he's actually leaning in for a hug. Remember?
That's not a hug, I'm just grabbing the door for you.
Well, check out what Tom Holland had to say about the scene.
Well, that was actually an improvised moment. I think I just tried to hug him. I just thought it would be funny if I hugged him and...
The hilarious moment was completely improvised for laughs, but Robert Downey Jr. went along with it. Speaking about Tony Stark and his emotions, during the final moments of Avengers Infinity War, he was nothing but emotional. Same Mr. Stark. As Spider-Man turned into nothingness in his arms, we were all a puddle of tears when he desperately chants,
I don't want to go. I don't want to go. Sir, please. Please, I don't want to go.
That was all Tom Holland again. The director gave him free rein on the death scene, and Tom delivered. Even if he doesn't think it was that spectacular himself.
I don't want to go 3 times in a row, so it's not that amazing of an ad-lib.
It's hard to believe Spider-Man is one of Tom's first big roles. Tom Holland and Zendaya's chemistry is off the charts. Peter Parker and MJ are like magic on screen together, and a lot of that is thanks to the actors' off-screen friendship. According to Zendaya, Tom has a habit of deviating from the script, but thankfully, they're so in tune with one another that she was able to respond right back, no matter how annoyed she was.
He just kept improvising. He just did not stick to the script. He was trying to throw me off.
What's your favorite Peter and MJ scene?
She knows. I told her.
He didn't tell me. I figured it out.
If there's one thing better than watching Peter and MJ on screen, it's watching Peter, MJ, and Ned interact with one another. But the truth is, a lot of the time we're watching their off-screen relationships shine through the camera. Remember in Spider-Man Far From Home, Ned walks in on MJ and Peter while he's changing into his Spider-Man suit?
The costume looks great! For the costume party.
Well, Ned wasn't in on the fact that MJ had found out their secret and tried to play it off. Ned's actor, Jacob Batalon, actually said that was one of his favorite scenes to shoot because he got to improv all his comments. There was a lot of laughter on set that day. We have to give Jake Gyllenhaal credit for playing such a convincing role as Mysterio. Who knew that he would actually turn out as a villain in the end? But it looks like we should be praising Jake for more than just his impeccable acting skills. According to the actor, he and director John Watts came up with a lot of unscripted moments for his character that ended up in the film. We don't know what specific scenes these moments are in, but let's just appreciate Mysterio for a sec.
Somebody get this stupid costume off me!
Having Aunt May be played by a younger actress in the Marvel Universe gave us a whole other perspective on her relationship with Peter. It's so comforting to see the two of them interact on screen, but you'll be shocked to find out that a lot of their scenes were unscripted as well. One specific improvised moment in Spider-Man Homecoming happened while they're eating in the Thai restaurant.
How many times do I have to say larb before you talk to me? You know I larb you.
Their conversation was just something the actor made up on the fly with some guidance from the director. Yet again, we have another improvised moment between Peter Parker and Tony Stark. This time, it's in Captain America: Civil War. Check it out.
I'm gonna sit here so you move the leg.
Tony Stark telling Peter to move over might seem like it was in character, and it is. But it was also Robert Downey Jr.'s way of telling Tom Holland to scoot over onto his set marker without ruining the entire take. Funnily enough, it ended up in the final cut.
Can you even see in these?
Yes, I can't. Look, I can't.
Samuel L. Jackson got his moment to shine in Spider-Man as his character Nick Fury. He even got sassy with Spider-Man, although the line wasn't even scripted. When Peter admits he's a little hesitant to join their newest plan, Fury says,
"Bitch, please, you've been to space."
Samuel L. Jackson may not have recalled whether the line was improvised, but Jake Gyllenhaal jumped in to confirm it was 100% unscripted. I'm here to attest, that was improvised. Despite his hesitancy with Nick Fury, Peter was all in for helping out Iron Man on his Avengers Infinity War mission. But Tony Stark wasn't having it. Or should we say Robert Downey Jr. wasn't having it. While Iron Man is having a discussion with Doctor Strange, Peter chimes in that he's backup.
I'm backup.
No, you're still away. The adults are talking.
But that was yet again another improvised line between the unscripted heroes Tom Holland and Robert Downey Jr. Spider-Man: Far From Home is full of European landmarks that make the entire movie stunning, even if a lot of them do get destroyed. According to a Screen Rant interviewer, a lot of improvising happened in a specific landmark, the London Tower. The film's final battle takes place in London, and supposedly during this scene, the cast shot so many versions because of their ability to improvise. You'd never be able to tell in the final cut.
They join forces like the Power Rangers. You're thinking of Voltron. Who? Voltron, you're thinking of Voltron.
Drax's line,
"I'll do you one better. Why is Gamora?"
is one of the funniest highlights that came out of Avengers Infinity War, even if Spider-Man's life was literally being threatened in the scene. The line, however, was actually ad-libbed by Drax's actor Dave Bautista. The rest of the actors, including Tom Holland, are just so professional that they rolled with it. The camera operator even seemed to be quick to react. Michael Keaton got some time to shine in Spider-Man Homecoming, but one of his best lines didn't make the final cut. According to Tom Holland, Keaton actually made a direct reference to his role as Batman in the 80s. His character Vulture is a little confused as to why Spider-Man would save him, and after Tom Holland delivers his "because I'm Spider-Man," Keaton supposedly responded, "but I'm Batman." We don't know if the line was part of the script, but Tom Holland seemed to be hinting it was ad-libbed. Like we mentioned before, Jake Gyllenhaal played the perfect Mysterio, and a lot of why his character is so epic may be because of how well he got along with Tom Holland. According to Tom, Mysterio and Spider-Man were actually meant to bump heads a lot. However, while filming, their interactions turned out to be more friendly. The directors decided to let them head off the script and build their own relationship between the characters. They basically became BFFs.
Good luck, kid. I'll give you about a 50-50 chance. You're pretty awkward, so.
We also see Spidey's actual BFF, Ned, get his own romantic interest. But according to Ned's actor, Jacob Batalon, Ned's relationship with Betty was basically developed by him and actress Angourie Rice. He says they were given a lot of space for improv. They may not have lasted super long as a couple, but there's no doubt they were adorable.
I would totally kiss you, but I think I just threw up in my mouth a little.
I might have a mint.
It seems like Jacob Batalon had a lot to do with all his characters' relationships. With the chemistry between Peter and Ned, we've never doubted the way they were childhood best friends. And the chemistry between the actors off-screen is why it's so authentic. Apparently, because Tom and Jacob weren't given the script days in advance, they never knew their lines, which means their interactions are purely the two actors playing off one another.
Do you know him too? Yeah, we met. I stole the shield. The studio started calling me and gave me the news, and it was all official. Yeah, mate, it was crazy.
What kid doesn't dream about becoming Spider-Man? Well, for Tom Holland, that dream became a reality. Greetings, fellow Spidey fans. It's hard to imagine anyone else besides Tom Holland playing the MCU Spider-Man, and it's even harder to see any other actor or actress playing his family, friends, and foes. Today, we'll be taking a look at behind the scenes of how some of your favorite Spider-Man stars got their roles.
You know, I wanted to get into movies, and this is finally it, and it's crazy that it's Spider-Man.
Holland's audition process lasted a lengthy 7 months, including screen tests with both Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans. During his test with Downey, Holland's agent warned him that Marvel preferred that their actors stick to the script. The Iron Man star ended up going off script, leading the two to riff off each other. Holland left the audition hopeful, and even called his mom to tell her he thought he may have landed the part. 6 weeks went by, which caused Holland to lose hope, but sure enough, he was flown back out to Atlanta to do a screen test with Evans. After weeks of not hearing back, he assumed that he lost the part, until one fateful day when he saw an Instagram post from Marvel.
I type in Marvel, I've still got the article saved on my computer.
I did it, and it says we would like to introduce our new Spider-Man, Tom Holland.
I ran downstairs, I was telling my family, I was like, I got the part.
Zendaya initially didn't know she was auditioning for a brand new Spider-Man pick, with the casting call vaguely calling for a girl in movie.
I didn't even know what kind of character I was gonna play till I got there and got to sign a non-disclosure.
Her auditions went flawlessly. Holland recalled that the producers knew right away that they found their MJ.
She came in and they cast her before she even left the room.
Upon dropping out of college in Hawaii, Batalon found himself a talent agent who advised him to join the New York Conservatory for Dramatic Arts. He initially didn't even have much of an interest in acting.
I wanted to be a musician at first.
Okay.
When I was going to college still in Hawaii.
I was studying music theory, but then I dropped out, and then acting just kind of happened for me.
Film school made me really appreciate filmmaking.
During his final year, he did his very first audition, sending in a self-tape submission for a supporting role in a Marvel movie, never thinking it'd go anywhere. As fate would tell, Batalon received a callback and was flown out to Burbank to perform a screen test with Tom Holland. Batalon described the audition as nerve-wracking, stating that Tom had a really good time, but I was shaking in my shoes. But it was really fun. Gyllenhaal has gone on record to say that it's the character-driven films like Donnie Darko and Nightcrawler that have attracted him the most. When Gyllenhaal received a call from Far From Home director John Watts about potentially playing the role of Mysterio, he stated that he had to do his research first to see if it'd be the kind of role that he's keen on playing. That has always been my desire, to find something in that space that seems to match my skill, and also what I love, and my own honesty.
And it just so happened that it does with that part.
Revolori initially auditioned to play the webhead himself, since the casting call was open to any ethnicity. He claimed that while it was fun, he felt like he botched his audition. He would later return to audition for the role of Ned, getting called back multiple times, before the producers realized they had another role in mind for him: Flash Thompson. Revolori wasn't told the name of the character, and was told to recite the lines of Biff Tannen from Back to the Future. As a comic book fan, he ultimately put 2 and 2 together and realized that he was actually auditioning for Flash. Tomei initially wasn't aware of the Aunt May character in the comics, and went through the entire negotiation talks not knowing her character was traditionally depicted as a senior citizen. Tomei claims she was horrified upon learning more about the character. She and the producers initially considered giving her character her traditional silver locks, before ultimately going a completely new route with the character that Tomei would be more comfortable playing. From the time the creative team behind Homecoming decided that Vulture would be the villain, they knew right away which actor they wanted to portray the classic Spider-Man foe, Michael Keaton. Surprisingly, Keaton almost wasn't cast in the role, as talks initially fell through due to scheduling conflicts. In the end, Keaton did land the part, and now it's hard to picture anybody else in the role of the winged villain. His audition process didn't last nearly as long as some of his other co-stars when it came to being cast as Peter's romantic rival Brad Davis. Sent in an audition tape and there were fake lines that I'd use, so I didn't know what I was doing.
And then I just got a call that said, do you want a role in Spider-Man?
Within the span of a week, he was flown out to London to join his co-stars on set of the blockbuster sequel. Harrier revealed that she was simply just sent the casting call for her character Liz.
You know, you get this email like Spider-Man, like, oh yeah, that's never gonna happen.
But then I had another one, and then I had a screen test. During this process, she was able to learn more about the character of Liz, and how this incarnation would be different from the comics. Upon hearing about Zendaya's casting, Harrier thought she had lost the role, but a call with her agent reassured her that she was still in the running for Liz. Rice was just coming off her breakout role in The Nice Guys upon being cast in the role. She revealed that she was actually participating in the audition process for Betty Brant, while doing press for the crime comedy. Toda, like Revelori, initially auditioned for the role of Ned, but after losing the part, the film's producers told her that they still wanted her in the film. Peter's classmate Seymour. Toda noted that the character wasn't initially written for a specific orientation, but worked with Watts to inject more of her personality into the character. Smooth actually made his Marvel debut in an Audi commercial alongside Holland, and was able to make connections on set. Thanks to his work on the commercial, he soon got a call to be in Far From Home, which he happily accepted.
You okay?
I'm fine.
Lendeborg's charisma and great reputation helped him land the part of Jason. He recalls having dinner with Watts, with the director telling him, "Hey, when I asked around, everyone said that you were really good to work with. The reason we stopped pursuing other actors was because people said they didn't like them." Simmons memorably played J. Jonah Jameson in Sam Raimi's original trilogy, but despite it being the same character, Kevin Feige has made it clear that it is not the same incarnation. Feige and Watts even made plans that if Simmons turned the role down, that they'd have to completely reinvent the character.
It's great to have the opportunity as these things evolve to be one of the holdovers from the previous version.
Barrick is one of the first openly trans actors in the MCU. He had actually auditioned last minute, but was quickly cast and was flown out to film in London. He appreciated that his character's gender identity didn't define his personality, and that he was simply just along for the ride. Audiences around the world have come to love the cast of Marvel Studios' Spider-Man franchise, and it's obvious why. The cast has come from all different kinds of backgrounds, giving the films a diverse point of view. It'd be hard for us to picture a Spider-Man movie going any other way. Who's your favorite actor or actress from the Spider-Man films?